Welcome to the show, brother. How you doing today?
Good, man. How are you? I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, no, I'm a recovering flu or whatever you want to call it. So, uh, all my listeners, my voice sounds a little bit damp, and I apologize. But no, man,
It's just deeper and more manly, that's all.
yes, more masculine. Yes, masculinity, one of the pillars of this show. I've been trying to increase my masculinity, but no, man, it's good to get you on. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, so you know, excited to finally get you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to seeing what we talk about here. We have some really good mutual friends. I actually got dinner with them probably 2 weeks ago now, but they were telling me about like you and what you do and where you come from, and it was just cool to learn more aside from the conversations that we've had in the past. So thank you, Lauren and Sean.
Oh, they're the best. Sean, I was Sean and Sean's brother Ryan. I was like their second client ever. So I've known them for, I think as long as I've known my wife, which is like 12 years. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so I've been with these guys for a minute. They're good people. Um, I'm
Are you in
excited.
Westmoreland? Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I can't believe that you are basically co-founders with your brother and dad. Talk to me about that relationship dynamic and building a company.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's not where it started. So the original dude I started the company with was a Navy guy. He was in OCS and came back after OCS, and we were doing some Army Ranger style fitness program, and that's how we kind of had the idea for the app. So he was involved, and then my brother Tyler got involved, and Tyler's got just finance skills and accounting skills and legal skills that I just like. I have the skills, I can do some of the things, but he's trained in it and he's an expert and been just super helpful in making sure that that side of our business is wrapped up. And he's a big ownership guy and he works really really hard. So we've been blessed to have him. And then we spent a lot of years doing like prototyping with different technologies in the body tracking space, and it was just tricky, man. And I'm a designer, so I understand how to build a concept. I understand how to connect it with users and listen to people like yourself and Sean who have health science expertise. So I'm really good at that side. I'm really good at the market connection side, and the product development. But then once it gets to like coding, that's out of my wheelhouse. And my dad's been an engineer for 40 years. So he's just brilliant in that space. He jumped on at one point. We actually went and we asked him for an investment, and he said, well, instead of an investment, what if I join the team and build this thing for you? And it's been fun ever since. So we actually just got partnered up with his software company. So I worked there for 10 years. It's called TrueFit. We got partnered up with them. They're in the middle of the product development, and we're hoping to have a launch here in March 2025 of our MVP product. So that'll be pretty sweet. But there's one other guy along the way who helped us with some marketing, and he was a military guy as well. So he helped us learn about that. So it hasn't been only me, my brother, and my dad, but now it is. The other two guys have gone on for different things in their life. But it's just been a really cool dynamic to, one, have like family interest involved, right? So we all have, it's kind of a mutually beneficial situation. If one of us succeeds, the other one of us succeeds. We have each other's back in a way that I don't think you can say you have in every business. It's, a lot of people are self-interested in businesses, and family or not, whether or not you're working with your family, I think that's a point that every team has to come to, where it's like, hey, this isn't about me. This isn't about you individually. This is about us and what we can do together and the impact we can make together and the benefits that we can get together. And if you can't figure out how to have that group mindset and that team mindset, it's just not going to work, because the interests are all pulling in different directions and they're all trying to motivate where that company's going in different directions. And the only way to compete in a really high end market is to be rowing in the same direction. You have to be. And the second things start pulling in the wrong direction, it's a distraction. It's a waste of time. It's, creates arguments and tension, and it's just not it's not a successful strategy, frankly. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
It does. It's rare that you find family members that have such complementary pieces or complementary skill sets, I should say. Usually, when you get into a family siblings, sons, they're very similar. And sometimes when you're building something, when you have too many similar people, it becomes, a construct. And it's rare and unique that you guys complement one each other so well. Where did that come from? Or is somebody like your mom? Like, where did these skill sets come from?
So both of my parents were engineers. First off, that's where the family history comes from. I think, for better or for worse, it created a really, really high standard when we were kids. And I think, outside of the family environment, we live in a world that's trying to reduce the standard so more people can succeed. I'm not going to agree with that any day. I'm not going to agree with it. I think we have to equip and empower people to reach the highest standard possible as much as possible. And the systems that we create in the world, the companies that we create, the relationships that we create need to help empower people to be better than they are, not lower the universal standard so that everybody can fit a mold of some sort. Because that actually creates more problems than it solves. It sounds like a good idea because it's inclusive. It sounds like a good idea because it's easier to reach, but that's short-term thinking. And the long-term thinking is like, hey, we as humans have power to learn and grow and change and develop and improve to hit any high bar that we want. And it's about creating an environment of learner mentality, growth mentality, but also like the collaboration necessary to do that. The older generations teach the younger generations. We do this in school, but it's very structured in the direction that the education system wants us to go. Outside of that, like having relationships with mentors, having relationship with friends that do things that you don't do. Now you're starting to learn and grow in areas that you didn't know before, and that's helping you take a step up. But that requires collaboration, like I said, but it also requires dropping the ego and having some humility to listen. And that's hard for most people because the last 15, 20 years of American culture has been individualism, where it's my job to be who I am, to go out into the world, to say that I'm better and tell the best story about myself and stand up against everybody and like just prove that I'm a pillar on my own. That's a really strong skill to have, and I won't doubt that. But it's not nearly as strong as having collaboration and teams and true relationships and working together towards a goal. Because at the end of the day, if I as an individual try to be a designer and an engineer and a finance person and a lawyer and a athlete and a personal trainer, like the quality of each of those services that my business is going to offer are going to be each individually lower because I'm trying to do all of it out of myself. But there are people, one of our trainers, Gina, she's incredible, man. Dude, she gets in a room, she teaches yoga classes and HIIT classes, but she has an awesome ability to connect with people socially first. But then she also has an awesome listening ear where she can kind of understand what people are doing. Even in the midst of like a 25-person class, she can see somebody struggling, go over to them and deliver a solution or a slight tweak to their movement that helps them get what they need. I don't have that skill, man. And so watching her is incredible, and we're super blessed to have her on the team. But that applies to everybody that we work with. It's like, how can you fit individual pieces together to be something more than that? And if we have a culture where we're focusing on individualism, it actually it sacrifices the group dynamic. And the group dynamic is where all of the influence and power and the momentum builds.
I do a lot of work in identity, and I say one of the most important pieces of identity is the purpose to serve something greater than yourself. Something
Absolutely.
you said about excellence and standards. How do you balance well-being while chasing something? And then once you reach a certain goal, what do you do next?
How do you balance well-being? Well, first off, I'll say I haven't been the best at balancing well-being, and I think I've done a lot of probably research in the same area that you have. And I think the people who are, you look at Elon Musk, whether or not you like him, or you look at some of these big business guys, Patrick Bet-David, or like Andy Frisella, or any of these people who have built a large, highly successful business, they don't have balance. And so we live in a culture that says that we need to have balance and everything needs to be happy-go-lucky and soft and friendly all the time. Sorry, guys, it doesn't create success. It doesn't create success. You have to drive really hard. You have to make hard sacrifices. You need to stick to what your goals are and not change them. Like if every time something is hard, you make a shift, your aim is different every single time. I don't know if have you done much like shooting range activity, like shooting with guns?
I've done some. I'm not going to act like I'm some type of expert.
Yeah. Again, guns is not the point of the conversation, but like the tiniest, if you're ever doing like 100-yard range or whatever, the tiniest little shift in that sight will get you off target. The tiniest little shift. And when you're in a business, the team, that group dynamic has to be aligned around one specific target, and they all have to be aimed in that direction. And one person trying to take it into a different direction is risk that it's not going to go to the right place. And one of the leadership challenges that I've dealt with is effectively communicating that vision and that goal before we get people involved, right? Is this something that you want to do? Because we know where we're going. My dad and brother and I have been doing work in the space for a long time. We grew up, and I mentioned this in another podcast, but we had grow family values. It was like a list of things that our family does. This is who our family is. This is what we care about, and this is what we're aimed at. So Tyler and Dad and I had a great ability to align around the purpose of Pose as a business and push towards that mission. And I think there's some people who were involved who just had a different mission or wanted to try and get us to deviate in a different direction, and we weren't willing to do that, and that created tension. So part of it is being super like myopic on what your goal is. Be very specific, write it down, and before you get started, like massage it. Like you don't have to just write it down one time and be like, hey, this is the next thing I'm going to do for the next 10 years, right? Like go through the paces of testing that idea before you decide to invest in it, and play out all the scenarios. Is this something that works? Is this something that provides value to people? Is this something that other people are going to get around and understand and want to support? That kind of putting it through its paces early helps you have confidence when you're getting started. And I won't even say that we did a great job with that in the business. We kind of flew by the seat of our pants and hope for the best, and we're blessed to be where we are now. But if I going back to like my design degree, there's a whole, we call it the innovation pipeline. It's a series of steps that you go through to take an initial concept, mature it to the point where it's ready to go to market, and then launch it to people who can build it, right? That's what my degree is in. That's what my expertise is in. But if you skip that upfront process in innovation of conditioning your ideas to make them strong, then you're just it's short-term thinking. You're just kind of throwing something out into the market and hoping for the best. Or what a lot of times happens is like you're looking at the competitors and just trying to keep up with the competitors. But innovation is leading by example. Innovation is cutting edge. We're not looking at what other people are doing and doing the same thing. We're looking at what other people are doing and doing the thing that they're going to do 10 steps from now, because we understand the whole ecosystem of the market. So if you want to have that cutting edge idea, if you want to take things to the next level, do a bunch of research and invest in what you want. And the other thing I will say is, if you don't love what you're doing, it's never going to happen. So a lot of people are like, hey, I just want to make money. I just want to be able to support my family. I'd love to make my Instagram look good by traveling and having a motorcycle and shooting guns and, whatever it looks like for each individual person. But sorry, those whys aren't strong enough, man. It has to be for something more than that. And I forget it was one of the big entrepreneur guys said it, but the people who are the most successful are the ones who provide the most value to the most people. So best examples of that in the world, right? Like Amazon, there's 1 billion people using Amazon. Apple, there's 1 billion people who have an iPhone, and they're providing the most value to the most people. Now, is that value the best value they could be? That's a whole other conversation that we have, but they have 1 billion users, and that's where the value is going, and that's at scale, right? So one of the challenges that we see in the personal training industry is they are limited a lot of times to the amount of clients that they can see one-on-one. Nowadays, people are starting to deal with online, but those relationships are typically direct one-to-one and require some amount of like bandwidth balance for a trainer's experience. And at some point, there's too many clients for the trainer. So one of the questions that we're asking in our business is, what tasks does a trainer not need to do to help them build a business. And we've asked people, they're like, hey, I want to spend time with people. I don't want to spend time managing my books and doing marketing and shooting content and writing programs and all that. I want to spend time helping people and listening to people and creating a situation where they can learn and grow. And so we've talked to a lot of them, and like our goal with the product that we're designing is to take a lot of that work off of their plate, to free them up to do it with more people, and then also automate pieces of the process so that they can do that. Point being, the point of all that is like find tools that make it easier for you as well. So if you're trying to accomplish that goal, again, don't think that you can do it all on your own. If you're trying to use pen and paper for a job that AI can do in 5 minutes, like why? So there are tools out there in the industry, and sometimes they do cost money, but those investments, you're buying your time back when you spend that money. So, and that time could be used for more valuable things. So there's a huge workflow and project optimization attitude that you need to have. And every person's scenario that they create there is going to look differently, but it's about discovering what that is for you, solidifying it, creating repeatable systems and processes so that you're not trying to build everything from scratch every single time. And yeah, I don't know. Does that answer the question? That was long-winded.
The concept of balance, I agree, is not attainable in anyone who wants to achieve anything exceptional. So Sahil Bloom is one of my favorite entrepreneurs. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he talks about you have to earn the right to work smart. You have to work hard before you can work smart. And it's supposed to be hard. What you're doing is supposed to be hard. You're supposed to feel friction, because anything worth achieving has to be difficult. Now, that doesn't mean, like you said, you do things stupidly, right? For lack of a better term. If I can use a tool or an asset to make something easier or facilitate it faster, use it. But that doesn't negate that what we're trying to accomplish or what you're trying to do is going to be difficult. There's going to be setbacks. There's going to be changes. There's going to be pivots. And it's not for me to judge. Everybody's definition of success is a little bit different. What success looks like to them. Now, I think a lot of people have definitions of success that lowball themselves because of the way that they've been programmed.
Wow. Yeah, wow.
And so when it comes to fulfillment or well-being, I'm not sure there's a direct answer. There's a lot of science that supports, relationships and, personal achievement and things like that. But if you can't define those for yourself, what a successful relationship looks like, what a successful company looks like, what a successful, physical or mental goalpost looks like, you'll never be able to achieve anything. And another thing, in general, with well-being, I relate it to happiness. People think you can be happy all the time. That would be like eating one meal and being full all the time. It doesn't work that way, right?
It doesn't even make sense.
Exactly. You're going to go through periods of hunger, just like you're going to go through periods of sadness, anger, and frustration. So the concept of fulfillment and well-being, I think, gets hijacked by influencers, social media. And I think a lot of times when we see people who look like they're happy all the time, and that's one of the bad things of social media, is we think, why am I not happy all the time like this person? The reality is you're only seeing that person on screen. You're not seeing them off screen. You're not seeing what they're doing behind the scenes, all the hard work that leads to a production.
I was thinking about it the other day, like if you break up the day that they have and you think about how much time of their day is being shown on social media, it's like a minute out of 24 hours, right? They're sleeping in there, they're eating in there, they have relationships with people that they don't even show on their social media. We have no idea what's happening behind the scenes with most of these people. And it's a highlight reel, like everybody says.
I don't know if I've mastered fulfillment in my own life, but I know I'm significantly in a better mood every single day when I'm actually doing things that are difficult and aligned with who I want to become and what I want to achieve. And I found that
I don't think you can have fulfillment without action. We live in a comfort and almost laziness driven world where it's like, how do I spend the least amount of effort to be okay? that's not gonna create purpose and fulfillment. It's just not.
What's giving you purpose and fulfillment right now?
I'm a creator. I like to create products. I like to create content. I like to create new relationships with people and build those. That's where I get my fulfillment, and I like to help other people realize that they can do that as well. Just some of the conversations that I've had, you kind of see a little switch flip in somebody's head, and you realize that they start acting differently, and they start seeing more possibilities in the future than they did before, and that's more fulfilling than anything that's coming to me.
Where did the creator in you come from? Is it natural? Is it developed?
I mean, it's been kind of a day one thing. I was an artist as a kid. I was I was not the I did soccer and elementary sports, but I was no good. I didn't do any high school sports. I was in the art room drawing, and I was in a band playing music with people. And so that was kind of my natural inclination. And then design school was where I learned how to apply that to more, and I don't want to say that drawing and music aren't useful, but like more industrial related things, right? More business related things, more better ways to make money as well. Um, and so that it was cool to learn that, like, hey, this creative bone that I have can be leveraged to listen to people and provide value in different ways. And between this business and other businesses that I've worked on, it's pretty cool to see the variety. Because one of the things I love about industrial design, and I would recommend anybody who's creative, but also maybe has an engineering lean or something like that. Industrial design is kind of an underappreciated degree, but the whole model of industrial design applies anywhere. I've worked in some of the most wild industries ever. I've worked in aerospace on things that are going to land on the moon. Did I know that industrial design applied there? No, but it did. And now I'm in banking and working on credit card programs and trying to help people focus on better value of credit cards other than just spending money, right? How can this support a lifestyle that helps me save money and spend money in the right places instead of the wrong places? So the model of industrial design, that innovation pipeline that I talked about beforehand, like, it applies all over the world, and that's why the kind of creative that's how the creative fits into my life, I think.
So you go from not being a good athlete to creating a fitness app. Tell me how that happens.
Um, so I mentioned the grow family values at one point. One of them growing up, we like, first off, we sat down as kids. My parents and grandparents like sat us down in a room. I have two cousins, two brothers, and like the kids had to be with the adults, and they forced us as children to help us design these values. So they were helping us learn by helping us make them. And that was really cool. So it was engaging at a young age. Whether or not we like wanted to sit in a room as long as we did was another challenge. But one of them was health and fitness. Like, it was a pillar of what our family raised us on. And it wasn't like health and fitness like you have to go be a D1 athlete and a pro. It was health and fitness as in, this is a healthy habit to keep in your life all the time. And I think in the fitness world, one of the things that happens is we all expect and want to be a pro athlete, or we want to be the elite level, runner in the marathon. We want to win all the races and win all the competitions. And that stuff's great, and it's an awesome challenge, and it's something that a lot of us need to push to. But if you think about like all of the people in the world, not everybody needs that. Everybody does need to be physically active. Everybody does need to have a strong nutrition plan and eat healthy food, because you are what you eat, right? Like, if you put garbage in your body, you're going to feel like garbage, and your cells are going to work like garbage. But if you put healthy food in your body, like, so health and fitness to our family was less about competition. It was less about like hitting certain scores and metrics. It was more about integrating it as a regular part of our lifestyle. So that's how we think about it in Pose as well. And the way that I entered into a fitness business as a founder was through the industrial design, through the creation. So I was a new guy going into the gym. We were trying this Army Ranger program. They wanted us to do German volume training squats. I always go back to this. And I was like, okay, I know how to do a squat, but 10 by 10s? I'm gonna break myself, and I don't want to break myself. So we just looked online, and there wasn't really any good resources. We couldn't afford personal trainers at that point because we were just out of college. So the creative gene kicked in at that point and started solving problems. And after being in it for a while, we went through. I did Embrace the Suck twice. I put on tons of muscle through that. It was cool to see. And then as I started doing it, I started understanding, almost again from a creative perspective, oh, I have the ability to customize myself by taking action. I can be more functional. I can be more flexible. I can have more energy. I can have more mental clarity. I can feel healthier every day. I can have more energy as I go through my work. And those things apply not only to the fitness itself, but to all of the other tasks that I'm responsible for as a family member, as a business person, as a leader in any capacity that I'm a leader, right? Like, and the better I can be in those environments, the more I can help other people be better as well.
Something you mentioned earlier was when you were initially building your company, and as you look to attract talent, you're very, very specific in how you describe what you're aiming for because you want to attract the right people. And just a couple episodes ago, I had a 9-time founder. His name's John Hitler, and he talked about your mission statement should be polarizing. And he uses Elon Musk as an example, and he is saying his mission statement, either people are going to say hell yes or hell no. He's like, and
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what you want because you want to get the right people on the bus. So for you, I know you have a different way of creating a work environment that you feel is more beneficial than other companies. And I'd love to hear your process for that.
So it's interesting, and we're growing and expanding. Right now, the team, the physical pose team is small. It's me, my dad, and my brother, and we have partners and trainers, but we allow those trainers to run their own businesses. So what we're trying to do with Pose is create an environment where everybody who's involved with us can thrive. And right now, it looks like creating really, really strong business partnerships. So we're not necessarily bringing on employees. I'm not saying like we're not going to bring on W-2s at some point. We will. But the people that we're partnered with right now are 1099s, and we do really strong splits for them. So we met a couple trainers at Crunch Fitness, and we learned like they charge $65 an hour, which is kind of low in the personal training world. It's the baseline, right? Particularly for a big box gym. But the trainer sometimes is making only 30% of that for every hour that they spend. To me, that's immoral. Like they're the one, they're the ones that are experts in the field. They're the ones that are helping the people do it. And the big box gym is just hosting the facility. So if you're going to have trainers in your business who are helping the members of your business thrive and come back day after day after day, you damn well better be taking care of them. So we flip that on its head, and we only do this in small ways right now, but Gina's one of the trainers that we have. We have a 70-30 split with Gina. So she makes 70% of every business, and we take a little bit and we spend that little bit on marketing for her, right? Like it's not going into my pocket. It's going right back into helping us help more trainers, right back into having these podcast conversations so that we can build the community and bring more people into these classes. So the attitude that we have is around enabling people, whether they're an athlete, a trainer, a physical therapist, a professional of any sort in that space, to build and grow their businesses with us as their support structure. And one of the ways that we're doing that is through our champion program, which will launch in March. I have a big handful of people who are involved there, but it's literally just a basic ambassador referral program. If you get your clients or your friends or your patients to use our app, we're giving you, depending on how many people you convert, you get a different amount of commission every month, but it's literally just for saying, hey, sign up to Pose and getting somebody to stay on the platform. So really easy work, really easy side income for a lot of people. And it's us sharing what we're doing with other people who find value in it. So that's actually an open invitation. We have like a little application flow for anybody who wants to get involved there. But it's a really cool add-on to businesses. And the way that we're growing the app, this thing that's coming out in March will be our athlete interface. That's going to include a few programs and daily workouts and our AR body tracked exercises. But the next step after that is to create a trainer interface that connects those two things. So we're going to be addressing the entire workflow of athletes and trainers and PTs and patients, and trying to create a natural digital experience for people that fits in and takes a lot of work off of their plate. So yeah, it's not about us. That's the point. And when we're doing marketing conversations with people, it's like, how do we put the spotlight on other people?
How many iterations did it take you to get to this model?
A billion million. Yeah, I mean, practically. So we started on the body tracking thing. We were saying like what makes a squat a good squat, and it was about like using some sort of camera to judge the quality of emotion, and that's kind of still where our unique value prop lies. But so many things have been added to it since then. So we did probably 6 or 7 different iterations of just that body tracking, but we also learned things along the way that, like, if we don't have fitness programs in there, nobody's going to use it. So we had to add that. If we're not working with personal trainers, what's the point? We had to add that. If we're not going to engage a community through a champion program and through our social media, like, what's the point? We have to add that. And so I'm not even a guy who loves like social media. I don't like sitting on my phone all day, and I don't like seeing some of the nonsense that has to come through the feed, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make, right? Like it's worth it to go out there and contribute to this certain type of messaging. And we're not the only ones doing it, obviously. There's people like yourself, but then there's people out in the world who are trying to push the positive narrative, the positive merit-based, like, work hard, provide value to people, and we'll all thrive together narrative. And we want to contribute to that, not fall behind the wayside or run away from it.
The lesson here is where you start is not necessarily where you finish. And there's going to be, whether you're an athlete or in a different domain, there's going to be a number of challenges, a number of obstacles. Things are going to change. You're going to have to innovate. You're going to have to overcome. You're going to have to build that resilience piece in any endeavor, particularly the higher the stakes, the more resilient that you need to be. And, hard work comes up a lot in my conversations, and it comes up a lot with the people I talk to. And it's such a hijacked conversation because it's frequently you see people who have already made it telling people who are trying to make it that you don't need to work as hard, when there is so much work to be done. It is hard work. You have to work. You have to work yourself. I don't want to say work yourself sick, but like pretty darn close. All right.
You're
And
going to lose sleep.
yeah, exactly. But that isn't forever, right? There's periodization in life. But when you're in the initial stages of building a company, trying to be a collegiate or professional athlete, you are going to work really, really hard. That's not to say you don't find ways to decompress or find ways to recover or maintain health, but everything has to be done with intention. And you also have to realize things are going to change and you're going to have to adapt.
Absolutely. And I had this conversation. You should talk to a buddy, Tino. You'll find him on my social, but he and I had an interesting conversation a few weeks ago about power. And when you hear the word power, I mean, you might think powerlifting, but if you think about it from a global perspective, it's like a battle for power. And I think that's just a bad attitude about it. We are all granted a certain level of power to start. And it might be small, depending on where you come from, and it might be larger if you have a family behind you, a strong family structure, or it might be bigger if you have really immediate and natural talent. But no matter where you start with a certain amount of power, it's about how you use it. And then that power increases by the actions that you take. And early on, hard work is the only thing that you have to increase that power. And hard work is the thing that proves to other people that you're worth it. If you're not willing to work hard, if you're not willing to grind and provide value to people and keep your word and show up whenever you say you're going to show up, then the power's not going to grow because people don't trust you with more power. And Tino said this in our conversation before. It's the Spider-Man concept. With great power comes great responsibility, and the greater power you have, the greater responsibility that comes with it. So I think it's interesting to each of us individually need to appreciate the power that we have now and then use the resources we have in our hands to grow it. But that will bring more resources into the fold, whether it be more time or more money or better relationships, better connections, better business tools. And we should think about it like assets, like financial assets even. Each of those things that are added as your power grows are an asset that you can use to go get more power. And the better assets you have under your belt, the more you invest in those assets, the easier it is. So the hard work becomes less and less required because I have a guy I can call and he's going to put me in touch with a really solid partner and it's going to be easy. Or like the Pose example is the hard work is we've been manually building this app with our hands without any funding for 6 years. And only in the last 3 months did we get any funding to go work with a vendor to truly accelerate with us. But 6 years of our time was spent only doing manual hard work on developing this product. And that was the proof that we needed to gain a little bit more power. And then we spent that power from all of our hard work to gain a team, to invest in making this thing real. And now the fact that I can get this on somebody's phone every day is going to be even more power that we have in March to take it to the next level. And creating assets that you can reuse over and over and over again is working smarter, not harder, right? So you said it's about hard work, but there is an element of like working correctly. And I forget who it was. It was somebody in the music industry. He was like, I don't want to just take action over and over and over and over again. I want to take the right action as many times as possible, but not in a rush. And so I feel like all of us, at some point try to like bang our head against the wall and barrel towards something as fast as possible. But if you're not being tactical and strategic about how that works, there is a lot of wasted time and energy and momentum. And you might go down one road and it's not right. And then you have to backtrack and go down another road and it's not right. But if I sit back and listen and have conversations and work at what I know I can work at today and wait for that right opportunity to come out, it's way strategically more effective. And I can take the right steps over and over again. So we've said no to a whole lot of different opportunities at Pose because they're not the right thing and they're not keeping that end goal in mind, the thing we're aiming at. So I mean, the investor conversation is really challenging for entrepreneurs because getting money is movement. It creates acceleration, and that's good. But if that investor doesn't see what you're really trying to do and doesn't value what you're really trying to do, now you're giving equity over to somebody who has control and decision-making power in your business, and they legally have the ability to do it. So we've been very careful about how we create that situation so that our vision stays true to help the people who we know we have that we can help, because we're responsible to them. It's not about us. And so when an investor comes in and say, hey, I want Andy Grove to go make a certain move, it's like, well, Andy Grove can't move if it's not in the best interest of these people that we're responsible for.
I love this conversation because it's nuance, right? Working hard isn't bench pressing every single day. And I have this conversation with the athletes I work with, predominantly work with football players. It's sometimes working hard, and the hardest thing to do is to say no to the donut that you want to eat when you need to eat, a steak or your veggies or some rice that doesn't have a bunch of other stuff thrown in it, to eat the apple, right? That is hard work, right? It's working hard, but finding things that create leverage and finding things that exponentially grow. Going to sleep on time is something that is high leverage. That's really hard to do sometimes. It's really hard not to go out and drink and binge drink yourself to near death for cool memories, right? It's much harder to go to sleep on time so that come Monday, you can be ready for your 6 a.m. workout or whatever the case is. And so working hard isn't necessarily physical all the time. It's the mental and emotional side too, of making the correct decisions, the intentional decisions aligned with everything that you're trying to achieve. And that's the difference with, beating your head into a wall, like you said, for no reason versus working intentionally, working diligently and spending the energy in the right areas. It's not always physical. And the example, I think the weight room is such a good, and so are sports, but such a good example for life. And you talked about the responsibility growing. When I started working out when I was whatever, 12 years old, I could barely bench the bar plus like 25s on the side. Well, now I can easily, bench over 300 pounds. But that's 20 years essentially. I'm trying to think how old I am when I started, whatever, close to 20 years of just doing, obviously some really hard workouts, but recovery, diet, nutrition, the way I speak to myself. And eventually I get to this point and the weight didn't get lighter. I just became more strong. I just became stronger and more capable of lifting that weight with relative ease. And it's the same concept with other areas of our life with building a business. It doesn't get easier. We just become more equipped to deal with it. And we learn how to do things using less energy and more efficiently and effectively. We know when we can delegate. We know when we can react and read to ourselves. But it starts with, like you said, taking that action.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you were talking about like not choosing the donut or choosing to go to bed instead of drinking. And one of the key things there is that good decisions build momentum. So like it was funny. You talked about the donut and then you immediately said like steak and vegetables. In my head, the first thing I thought when you said that was like, man, I prefer steak and vegetables every day to a donut. But that didn't happen automatically. That happened from the habit of eating the vegetables and the steak over and over again. I love a good steak and I know how to cook it well. So I think, I mean, practically from a nutrition perspective, your food doesn't have to be super bland for it to be healthy. Like, go get a nice rub on the steak and put some garlic powder on your vegetables with some salt. Like, it makes it way more enjoyable to eat. So solve the problem in a better way, in a more long-term mindset way, rather than just saying that like, steak and vegetables is not as good as a donut. Like, again, it's all about self-talk, like you said. But the more you choose to eat the steak and vegetables over the donut, the more you're going to crave that instead of the donut. In the same way, the more you go to bed at the time that suits your needs the best, the more you're going to feel the habit of going to bed at that point and waking up at the right time to go do the things you need to do. And the habitual repetition of that creates ease. It's not easy the first time, but it's way easier the 100th time.
It's as soon as you can create those habits. Obviously, you see the book back here, Atomic Habits, but
Yeah.
it's the second that you can begin to automate things that feel challenging, you remove the decision fatigue. And so in the beginning, a little bit different. Well, granted, I haven't read Atomic Habits in a while, so I can't remember if it came from this, but it's the non-negotiable. You make it non-negotiable in the beginning. It's, I'm going to eat healthy. I'm not going to eat the whatever. And then it eventually just becomes second nature, right? But the decision fatigue can make it really difficult. So when you're having that internal conversation, you're trying to talk in your mind yourselves out of decisions that are good for you. It's like, I am really tired. Maybe I'll just press the snooze alarm today. It's like, no, it's like I have a non-negotiable. I'm waking up at this time. I've already accepted it. I'm just going to, when the alarm hits, I'm going to put my feet on the floor and I'm going to stand up. Or I'm going to put my phone somewhere out of reach where I have to put my feet on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it just becomes second nature and you begin to enjoy the process of these decisions. And then it gives you more energy where you can focus and do other things.
Yeah, I think habits are an interesting one too, because we were talking about social media earlier. We live in a world where so many people are yelling habits at us all the time, like I'm gonna go or not, right? Like Jocko's like, get up at 4:30 and get going, and Robin Schwarman's 5 a.m. club, and people are telling you that you need to eat a certain way, and that you need to lift a certain way, and that you need to run a certain way, and that you need to work a certain way. The overarching message that I think everybody needs to hear is that nobody's way is right but your way, and you have to take the creative time and effort to curate it for yourself, create the set of habits that actually matter to you, and not just do some arbitrary habits that some dude on the internet told you to do so that you can have some sort of structure. It's like, pick the ones that actually serve you. And as I was an entrepreneur, I spent a lot of time just trying to work hard. And at one point I had a mentor who said to me, like, You have to have self-awareness and choose the things that serve you, not just work hard, not just try to show other people that you're, grinding like crazy or doing some like hard challenge, or that you're the most active or strongest dude in the gym. Like, stop worrying about other people for a second and take time to reflect, be introspective, and write down the things that you need to do, and then write down the habits that help you do those things the most successfully. And it's not going to, like, the first time you write it down is not going to be the right time. Like, write it down, try it a few times, run a tweak, switch it up, and over 6 months of doing it, then you'll come up with a fluid motion that is easy to execute and actually serves the purpose that you're trying to reach. Because without that purpose, it doesn't matter, right? Without that purpose, it's arbitrary. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to live an arbitrary life.
I'm with you. Everything I'm about is living with intention and purpose and meaning. I talked a little bit earlier about that resilient piece. I don't think there's, even more so than athletics in a way, entrepreneurship requires about as much resilience as anything in this world. How do you deal with the ups and downs and the failures that come with entrepreneurship?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think I've gotten healthier at it over the years. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes you want to yell and scream. and I have yelled and screamed, whether it's to myself or other people. But I'm trying to think where to start. But again, it's back to habits. It's about, how do I want to move forward when things are hard? Do I need to create space and have alone time to process it? Do I need to go talk to a really trusted friend and get their opinions? One of the things that I've done my whole career, and I've been really blessed with some solid mentors, is going and talking to them. Like, I had this one guy, was my first job out of college was at a rail company, and I got to work with the CEO of this rail company. That's a $12 billion company, and I got to go hang out in his office, right? It's a crazy opportunity, but I still have his phone number, and I can still call him, and he'll still get dinner with me. Building relationships with people like that, who are a million miles down the road from where you are, they'll tell you things that you don't even know exist, and they'll help you identify the wrong directions that you might be headed, that you don't want to head, and they're also going to help you make really hard decisions. So, instead of running into those ups and downs cold and hoping that you make the right decision, build resources to deal with them. Build people who are wise, who can help you think through things and weigh out the options and choose the right option. And you're not always going to like the things that they say, but at the end of the day, like, this guy has run a 40,000 person company. I got less than 10 on my team. So who am I to say that I know any better than he is? And he has worked with people who are far more difficult than the people that I've had to work with. And he knows how to build successful teams and companies out of that. So the other thing, I was actually just on a podcast like 2 days ago with my buddy Chris. He's an Army mental resilience coach. And the last thing I asked him in the pod was, like, what are 5 things people can do every single day to support healthy mental resilience habits? It's not all about having your head screwed on straight in that hard moment. It's about creating those daily habits that support it, right? Going to the gym regularly creates mental stimulation that is, people who go to the gym have a better mental state than people who don't. The other thing that he said, really, really simple: get 8 hours of sleep every single night. Like, you can grind. Like, some people can handle like 6, 7, 8, but like, if you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep, something's wrong. You have to get an adequate amount of sleep, or your brain is not in a state to handle things appropriately. He also said, like, when you wake up in the morning, don't pull your phone out for at least like 20 minutes. Because one, it's like a barrage of a whole bunch of nonsense all at once, and your brain's not even awake yet, so it actually creates cortisol. But 2, it's just like the blue light, and you got to allow your body to like slowly wake up. And 3, he said, drink a full glass of water immediately, because it lubricates your system. right? And that your body's just going to be ready to go and move and function properly. Like this thing that we have is a machine. And if it's not taken care of appropriately, it's going to feel stress whenever, especially when things get hard. And if it's optimized when things get hard, like at least the body's not going to be a problem in that situation. So creating those sort of basic habits that support it, and then also having the resources around you to deal with the hard things that are out of your wheelhouse, right? Like you're going to run into things as an entrepreneur that you've never even thought you'd run into, and you're going to have to come up with the right decision, and you're going to have to stand by that decision. That's the other hard part. So as you're sticking to your aim and as you're sticking to your goal, you're going to have plenty of things in the journey that try to divert you. And whether or not you're a Christian, whether or not you believe this, I think that's it's the devil tempting us away from where we ought to go. And sticking to the journey, also adjusting it appropriately, but sticking to the journey is really, really important. And when you come against something that's going to try and divert you, you have to make the right decision no matter what. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you, it's about the people that you're responsible for.
How do you deal with that devil's temptation in your mind when you hear that voice trying to get you off path? How do you fight against it?
So I have a pretty aggressive mindset about it, and I'm not perfect either. There's temptations that I have that I deal with that do knock me off track sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's like that's more micro than macro, and keeping the macro on, that's not hard. It's really hard to choose something against the macro for me. So, but I think, as young entrepreneurs are deciding what they want that journey to look like, there's a lot of shiny objects. And you have to sit down and ask yourself, like, what is it that I truly want? What is it that truly makes me not happy, but feel purpose? That's different. I think happiness comes from purpose, but what makes me feel purpose? What skills do I have that are valuable? And where can I provide that value to people? If you can overlap purpose, skills, and value to people, that's your sweet spot. And that's that macro that you need to aim at. And align those things to actions that you can take every day and don't deviate from it. Fitness and personal training is a really interesting space because there's so many angles, right? Like, what do I want to be an in-person coach? Do I want to be an online coach? Do I want to do nutrition? Do I want to do supplements? Do I want to be a brand representative? Do I want to be an athlete? Do I want to go to the gym? Do I want to open a facility, right? Like, there's so many different things, and you have to pick which one of those actually serve the purpose of what you are trying to do, and then drive at it. Because, like, if you're a new personal trainer who's working at Crunch Fitness and making that really not optimal split, like, you don't have the finances to open a space, but your dream might be to open a gym. And if you're going to give up on opening a gym in 6 weeks because you didn't make enough money within that 6 weeks to open your gym, you're never going to get a gym. You have to work hard, and you have to be willing to maybe leave that job that's not supporting you appropriately and do something more creative. And you have to put in time and lose sleep over doing the research to find another way. Like, I have a couple personal trainers that I work with, like I said, and like, there's some people who are doing small hourly projects, and there's other guys that I know who have 3,600 trainers and clients on social media that they service every month, and they're making like 6 figures plus a month, which is ridiculous. But it's all about being aware of what your options are and then choosing the ones that serve your purpose the best, and then using that purpose not for yourself but for other people.
It's the conversation in my mind between motivation and discipline. I think people kind of separate the two when in reality they work together. They're cyclical in one another. In that macro, that large goal of where we want to go, it has to be so powerful. That ends up being your motivation all the time. You can't get there until you have clear intention and expectation of what you want. And you have to ask yourself those questions that you have been articulating early on in the process to solidify that why, so that motivation is always there. Now, in the short term, when it's, I don't want to wake up when I'm supposed to wake up, or I don't want to do this, it becomes easier to have that conversation of what do I want in the long term versus will this get me there? Will it take me away from there? And as soon as you can have that conversation with mental clarity, and you can't have that mental clarity if you're constantly negotiating with yourself with what you want in the long term. So once you establish that long term, that mental clarity is there. And then in the short term, you can say, I don't want this.
It
Now,
makes the short-term trade-offs really easy because you're like,
exactly,
does this lead to where I want to go or not?
exactly. And then we're not perfect, but we can be at least a little bit intentional where we can say, F it, I need today, I'm just going to binge watch Netflix, right?
You need space. You have to have space. I
Exactly.
mean, just last night I was like, okay, I got a lot of work I could be doing, but I'd rather take my girl on a date.
Nope.
I called her and we went and got burgers, and we ended up spending time together instead of working. That's 100% essential.
Exactly. And it's become so much easier to do that intentionally instead of by accident when, again, everything is aligned and on the same train.
Yeah, I think you said motivation and discipline go hand in hand, and I agree with that. I think motivation and motive are different.
Tell
Right?
me more.
Motive is purpose, and you set a motive, you set a purpose, and you aim at it, and it doesn't change. Motivation is an emotion, and emotions don't get us where we want to go because they're willy nilly and they kind of ebb and flow with the wind, right? We have to have control over that state, and we have to choose, no matter what the emotion, to aim at that purpose no matter what. And I think discipline is the series of actions that we take to get us there. So discipline is structure, motivation is emotion, and we can build habits to make that motivation more aimed at our goals. But then having that motive and purpose as a pillar is key.
I like to take the purpose conversation a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So I think where we can run into problems with purpose is if a purpose is a specific goal, because then once we reach that specific goal, then the question becomes, now what? And so I think about it, and Aaron Rodgers has talked about it. I've talked about it on my show using him as the example. His whole purpose was to win a Super Bowl. His whole life was dedicated to that. He then achieved it, and it became, now what? And so where I take the purpose conversation is purpose has to have meaning. And so the purpose can't be the specific goal, but the meaning behind the goal is what's important. And so however you define that in your own life is relative to you. For me, it's, creating a successful company is whatever purpose, but the meaning behind that is I can prove to myself that if I set my eyes on something, I can accomplish it, and that I'm capable of doing hard things, and that I'm building, what I call championship level habits that can be applied to any domain of life. So that's the meaning behind the purpose. So that way, when I hit a goal, it's not now what? Now, naturally, we're going to have new goals and we're going to move the post forward, but that meaning can stay the same so that I keep the same level of satisfaction as I maneuver through life, knowing that I'm constantly chasing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, what you said there was right on point. When you started talking, that's where I was going to go with it as well. Like, purpose in a goal, or a goal is part of a purpose. But like once you accomplish that and you hit that now what, you still have to have a purpose. So a purpose is almost a spiritual thing that's higher level. It's like, what do I want my whole life to be aimed at? And now I can decide what goals fit into that purpose. And so for me, like the now what would be like, what happens if we scale the business the whole way and it's real big? Now what? Like if my purpose was to scale the business real big, it's over. And now I have to find another purpose. But if my purpose is to build innovative products and digital experiences that help people live better lives and contribute to society, now when that one business goal is reached, I can start a new one that still fits the purpose.
It's exponential.
It's exponential, and it's just continual. Like it doesn't end. It's not something that ends. So if your purpose, if you can see an end to your purpose, maybe you need a better purpose, or maybe you need to take that purpose to a next level. Because I would say Aaron Rodgers' example of like winning a Super Bowl, that's not a purpose, that's a goal. And he may have accomplished that goal, but if that was his whole purpose and identity around that purpose, and it's over, then it creates an interesting opportunity because you can say what's next, and that's kind of fun. But the purpose, I think if we asked him a little bit deeper and we did maybe the five whys on it, right? His purpose is actually something deeper than that. His purpose is probably something around setting a good example for others and what they can achieve, or things like that. It's not the Super Bowl wasn't the purpose.
Tell me a little bit about the product launch coming up here. Want to hear about it?
Yeah, I'm very excited. It's been a long time coming. So what's happening in March? We're kind of looking at late March at this point, early April for this product launch. We're putting out our athlete interface MVP. So MVP is a product development term for minimum viable product. This is the smallest thing that we can put out in the market that'll provide value to people. It's going to have a bunch of fun features, and it's going to start showing us how people are interacting with the product and moving forward. So just high level, the things that are going to be involved, we're going to have a whole bunch of body tracked exercises. You'll be able to buy a little $20 Amazon tripod, set your phone up on it in the gym, and have it watch you go through your motions. And based on your own unique body proportions, you'll be able to get scores on every single rep. You'll be able to average the score of a set. So like, let's say I did 10 bench presses and I got some 50% and some 60% and some 70%. It's going to average all those scores into one set score. And then we'll be able to benchmark that against all of the exercises in a workout and then create a workout score. So we're tracking a whole bunch of unique pieces of data that aren't really tracked at the moment. But part of it is to kind of gamify the workout experience. A lot of the other products that are doing the body tracking are doing simple things like counting sets and reps, and they're telling a lot of angles and things. But from our perspective, like, some of those products take a health science degree to understand. And what we're trying to do is simplify the data so that people can kind of get a little bit of gratification every time they make a good decision, every time they get an accomplishment. It's a gamified fitness experience. So your body tracked exercises are one thing. We'll also be able to log exercises that we don't body track yet. So something like, we were just looking at calf raises the other day. Like, it's not a very complicated motion. There's not a lot of form quality that needs to go into a calf raise, right? But you'll be able to say, like, just type in like, hey, I did 50 calf raises or whatever, and you can track that over time. With where we are now, we are generating a whole bunch of like standard workouts. Like I said before, one of the groups of people that we're trying to target is people who don't know what to do in the gym yet. Like, people are trying to take that step one and get access, and they maybe don't want to do a personal trainer yet because it's intimidating, or they don't know what to do in the gym because they haven't experienced all the variety of exercises they can do. We got templates that they can go through, and makes it really easy. Typical chest tries, back buys, shoulders, legs, 3-day splits, 6-day splits, and then longer term programs as well. So you'll be able to go into those programs, check the boxes, body track the exercises that are body tracked, and then all of the data around each of those things is going to port out into a stats screen. And that stats screens will show you quality of, like, let's say I did a whole bunch of bench presses. It'll show you the quality of your bench press overall over time. It'll say like, hey, 6 months ago I had like a 50%, and now, hey, look at me, I have a 70% or a 90% bench press. But the unique thing about weightlifting is that once your form gets really good and you're good at like 135, okay, now I'm going to push towards 225. So my quality of form is going to go down again. So you actually be able to see the ebbs and flows of that and use it as an indicator of when to move on to a better weight. So part of that is injury prevention. Part of that is teaching people how to make good decisions. But that'll be available in the app. And then the other thing that we're going to be able to do is show two things about programs: completion, which is how far through a program are you, but also compliance. How much of the program did you actually do? So if you're assigned 10 reps, did you do 8 reps? Did you do 12 reps? And so with compliance, you could actually get over 100% score because you're doing more. Now, that's not necessarily good in every program, but we'll have the right benchmarks and programs built around that. So the other opportunity that this opens up is if there's any people who have who are like personal trainers and they want to include programs in our product, like we can input any programs that we get. So we're going to build this massive program library. We're going to have some standard pose programs, but also it's a branding opportunity. It's a marketing partnership opportunity for any health science professional to come along with us, put their name on a program, and sell it to anybody in the app. Right now, the sales will be through the ambassador program, but as we get the trainer interface, and then hopefully the next year or so, they'll be able to actually offer their services to clients. They'll be able to roster and manage people, but that's down the road. The champion program will open once the MVP is out. So we're taking applications for that right now. I have a really solid handful of people who are interested. We have like just a basic survey that you go through to tell us, do you align with who we are as a brand, and do you want to support the things that we're supporting? Once we figure that out, you get a code. So every account will get a code. Mine will be like Pose Founder Guy or something like that. And that code, if you get somebody else to use it, it gives you credit for their account. So if you don't apply to be an ambassador or to be a champion, you won't get anything for it. You'll just get credit. But if you do apply and get accepted to be a champion, you'll get a certain amount, depending on how many people you convert, of their monthly recurring revenue. So that's the key here. If you sign somebody up, you get part of their revenue every single month. And then if you're somebody who, like, let's say you're a fitness coach online who has a whole bunch of personal trainers that you teach how to do your business. There's a second tier to the champion program called our champion promoter. And that's like, you can help coach trainers how to be better trainers. You can help coach trainers how to use the Pose app with their clients. And you get credit for all of the trainers that you bring on. And then they get credit for all of the clients that they get on. But you get a piece of that whole pie. So it's not quite multi-level, but it's one level. But it creates a really cool kind of side income for people to be adding to their portfolio and building their business. And yeah, you get paid out every month. I'm trying to think what else. Those are the main features of the new product in March.
Beautiful. Well, hey, Andy, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. If people want to apply to be an ambassador, they want to download the product or the app, how can they do so, and how can they reach out to you if they want?
The Pose Champion link will be on our Instagram bio. So I'll put it on there. It's Pose Fitness app on Instagram. It's Pose Fitness app on TikTok, I think, as well. And usually if you search Pose Fitness or Andy Grove, you'll find. My Instagram personally is the ADG experience with just an X. But yeah, so we're very excited to talk to people. If anybody has any questions, like I'm all ears and happy to schedule time with people. And our goal is to help steer this project in a way that helps people grow their businesses. So again, it's about you guys, and it's about how we can help. So we're all ears and looking forward to hearing a lot of feedback and helping turn this product into something that's a game changer.
Well, hey, I appreciate it, man. It's been a blast to have this conversation. Excited to help you on your journey as well. So thanks for coming on, man. Listeners, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to tune in next week. Download the pod, subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave us a review. 5 stars only, baby. Appreciate you.
Thanks, dude. This is great.